Hey, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Baldwin. I'm a Grand Valley State student in the recreational therapy program. My research is going to be on, can LSD improve sensory functioning in dementia patients? So dementia is a chronic acquired loss of two or more cognitive abilities, functioning, memory, adaptivity. There are over 5 million people worldwide, or 55 million people worldwide, and there's about 6.2 million individuals affected by dementia or some type of dementia in America today. It's mostly found in 65-year-old individuals, and it also is the #1 accessor to Alzheimer's disease. So dementia, it's a form of memory loss. It's a form of functioning. It's a form of problem solving. It's a form of everyday living activities. It's a functional neurological disorder, which basically it goes into the neural regions and the receptors of the brain, causing functionality, movement, sensory, physical limitations and disabilities, and mobility factors. Some of the domains of cognition is your attention span, your memory, short-term and long-term, your intelligence, your executive functionings, such as your physical capabilities to sustain everyday activities of life, social cognition, and your everyday judgment. So what happens in the brain is that the brain starts to disconnect and disassociate with itself. Once that happens, the brain starts to deform, actually causing abnormalities in the amyloids. Proteins in the brain receptors start to disconnect and start to denature as well. So that's going to cause a lot of that brain separation that we tend to see in a lot of people with Alzheimer's compared to normal brains. So they're the neurons, the synaptic part of the functioning of your nervous central system is all going to be affected as well. The main receptor is the 5-HT. And this little receptor exerts a direct modulatory influence on almost every pathway of the brain, which gives us our functionality, our memory, our cognition, our emotions. It gives us the capability to move, to breathe. This is that #1 receptor. So once that receptor starts to disassociate, that's where we start to see a lot of help for that individual and decline into the stages. So going into LSD, LSD is lysergic acid diethylamide, and that is a man-made drug that comes from the plant, from the rye plant. It is a fungus that grows specifically on that plant. What LSD does, it alters the mind, the body, the soul, the sensory, functionality, vision. And how it does it is it acts on that 5-HT receptor that increases serotonin and dopamine receptors, which gives us the happiness, it gives us strength, it gives us well-being, it's allowing us to function as a normal human should. So there's a relationship. As we decline in age, the brain starts to disassociate itself. That's called the brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's going to happen to everybody. The brain, the body just slowly deteriorates as we get older, thus increasing depression, anxiety, the neurosynaptic systems, or the NPS, that gives us our functionality, it gives us our memory, emotions, behaviors. And then what the psychedelics do is they enhance brain plasticity and modify the connection. So They reshape, reconnect, and rebuild the brain and the neuro regions so that everything can function the way or prolong the functioning. LSD has a very, very high effect on the H5HT receptor because it acts as an agonist and an antagonist. It binds to the substrate of the serotonin in that receptor, dopamine, increasing a lot of betterness for the individual in functionality and cognition. It selectively occupies several different types of H5T receptors, so that's where we get a lot of different things going on. The visions, the sensories, the touch, the taste, the smell, all becomes either overloaded or right at that perfect happy medium place. So like, we'll get into that a little bit here in a second. Another thing is LSD and other selective 5-HT2 receptors start to rebuild, rehance, and they can also alter the pathways of glucocorticoid hormones, which is going to cause us a lot more benefits. Proteins, sugars, things that our body needs, essential amino acids, our capability to rebuild, regenerate different cells so that we can heal. There's that major connection with that 5-HT receptor. So the effects of LSD. LSD is going to and can change your depth perception. It can alter your vision. It's going to alter your taste, your touch, your smell, your sights, your sounds. It's going to cause and can alter behavior changes in individuals. People that become aggressive, you're going to see, or they can become more mellow. They're going to be more calm. They're going to be more relaxed. You're going to get those changes in emotions. You're going to get changes in behaviors. You're going to be able to feel and sense different things in the environment and in nature that we don't truly get to experience under the normal receptors in the enhanced and the normatives. Once things start to get enhanced or altered, it changes a lot of how we function. The chemical compounds of LSD act as an agonist and an antagonist. So what that means is if somebody's really, really depressed and anxious and stressed out, it's going to alter those dopamine and serotonin receptors, and it's going to change. It's going to increase happiness. It's going to decrease the stress. It's going to decrease the breathing rate. Therefore, the person's going to slow down more. It's going to change how they think. If they're having a lot of negative thoughts, LSD can enhance and alter that behavior or those thoughts into something better and completely block out those negativities and just enjoy the touch of an animal, a dog, the colors of the flowers, the colors of the rainbow, the rain, just different aspects that we really don't take for granted can be enhanced, altered, and changed. So some of the things that LSD has that very negative, deep, dark horror stories are those hallucinations, seeing animals that should not exist, thinking there's people or there's something in, around, or coming after you. Nobody wants to have that. Feeling like there's spiders or there's some kind of object that is in your environment that is very uncomfortable. LSD can make things feel the way they're not. If it's a very soft, feathery object, a silky object, it can feel very hard. It can feel very pokey, sharp. It can change and alter your depth perceptions. Things like dark colored carpets become very dark holes. Things that are very high or elevated become very, very difficult to climb or crawl over or under. You can experience people or things that are behind you or coming after you, or hearing sounds and, you know, as veteran as well, I suffer from PTSD, so the flashbacks can be way more enhanced, where it feels like buildings are shaking when they're not, just because your balance is off, because LSD can throw that equilibrium. Somebody who's very, very calm, very relaxed, very isolated may become very irate, have spider monkey like capabilities, and start climbing walls because they're chasing something or something's chasing them. Hearing things, you may get that experience of cop sirens when you're 16 miles deep into some forest, completely off a beaten path with no civilization around you, just because of that paranoia, or the gunshots way off in the woods during deer season may be way closer than they appear. But even though they're way safe in a distance, you might hear things. You might hear the birds chirping that are 6 miles away, compared to just normal everyday city traffic stuff. So those are kind of like the bad negative aspects of the LSD. But then again, some of those same negative aspects could be a positive aspect as well, such as reverse psychology. If somebody's already seeing a pink polka dotted bunny that's being attacked by a yellow polka dotted green grizzly bear, on a daily basis, now LSD might take both of those unnatural, realistic animals away. And now the animal that he's seeing is a blue jay in a bird, in a tree, which you're seeing the same thing. Now he's just seeing a different aspect of reality, because it altered and changed the receptors in the neurons. Somebody who's very, very high strung, you might see them sitting in a hammock next to the river for hours on end, just enjoying the peaceful quietness of nature that he's trying to escape the chaos in his head. You might see somebody that is completely unphysical, just very, very unwanting to do anything, just completely sits on the couch or sits in his bed, doesn't do anything. Well, now they want to go check the, listen to the wind in between the leaves of the trees and actually see the seeds inside the flowers blossom and fly and, replant themselves because of the wind in nature. Just, seeing animals that like in their natural habitat that we don't get to see every day, because they're so gone on the animals and the things that they already see in their head that are not there, so having that change in that perspective of redesigning and reconfiguring the mind, LSD has shown many years that capability. LSD influences. LSD has been on the market. It's been in medical fields since the late 1930s when it was created deeply. 40s, 50s, and 60s is when LSD really came out. Music, LSD has influenced music so much. Such as everyone has heard of the Beatles. The Beatles spent 3 to 6 months in India and Bangladesh and throughout Pakistan with the Dalai Lama tripping on acid. And then they came back and recorded the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Heart Band, which is still one of the top best albums on the world. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison of the Doors, the Grateful Dead, Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe. Those are just the beginners. Now look at who we have here today. A lot of our music and our art inspirations because of the LSD and how it enhances and changes and alters our mind on the actual true colors and the depths. Vince Van Gogh, even though he did not take LSD, he did take a supplemented plant and it gave him the same hallucinogenic effects as LSD. Even though he chopped his own ear off high and delusional, that plant also created all of his beautiful art, such as the Midnight or Starry Skies. So, medical treatments. Once LSD hit, it was during the asylums. It was during the dark ages, what I call of the medical practices, where everything was trial and error. Lobotomies were a daily thing. Like you go to the barber shop, and not only did he cut your hair, he was also the guy you talked to about how crappy, your therapist. And then he would also pull your tooth all in the same day with the same tools. So our medical practices have always been kind of hallucinogenic, a trial and error. Well, that's what LSD is. It's not for everybody, but the only way to know who it's for and who it's not for is by trial and error. I know that's twisted to say, but so is everything that came in our medical practices. The government, during Vietnam, they would give the soldiers who were there for months. With Vietnam was a very, very, very dark, horrible war. All wars are. But they would, during battle, like as they're fighting, as they're taking on fire and returning fire, leaders would come up to them and literally put LSD in their mouth. That environment is not the best case scenario to ingest LSD when you're already in such a horrible, dark environment. That's just unpractical, unhumane. A lot of our medical practices are inhumane. Designer clothes, the attire, colors, art, all influences by LSD. The Dalai Lama, Gandhi, meditations, yoga, very, very deep with psychedelics and LSD to open the mind, body, and soul for healing, for mind control, for quality of life enhancements. It changes your mind, it changes your behavior, it alters your emotions. If you're sad, lonely, depressed, you're constantly crying, LSD, small microdosing, small, large, the smaller the better according to research studies. Get you out on the nature, go walk the riverbank, go spend the day in whatever peace that you call heavenly environment, to go there, go to the park, go sit and watch dogs run, change, alter that mind. So overall, in conclusion, LSD acts as an agonist and an antagonist. It changes that 5-HT receptor. It regenerates. It helps rebuild. It alters, it changes, and the mind, the sight, the smell, the taste, the touch. all for good. There can be bad, there are bad cases, but there's also 100% of different ways, like pills, medications. The other great thing about LSD is it does not have any withdrawal or addictive behaviors, unlike the medications. People's families steal their meds because of how high they get them. Well, there is no withdrawal effect from LSD. I want to thank you for your time, and you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.